Hello, everyone, and welcome to Growing Together, a gardening podcast with me, John Lamb, and Don Kinzler, a lifelong gardener and the North Dakota State University Extension horticulturist for Cass County. Don, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Good morning.
We're further safely into being spring and growing season, and it's feeling good, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Gosh, there's been a summertime feel to the air. I still don't trust May because just experience.
Yep.
We can get frost in May, and of course, experience is the best teacher. You might say it's by trowel and error.
I love it. Thank you very much. The jokes always get me, so I really appreciate that.
Notice how I slipped that one in there, John.
Well, before we get started, we'd like you to know that this podcast is sponsored by Bloomfield Garden Center, a family-owned retail greenhouse providing locally grown plants since 1974. And you can find them 1 mile north of Sabin, Minnesota, or 6 miles south of I-94 on exit 6, just a quick drive from Fargo-Moorhead. And Don, we've got a special guest with us this week. This is pretty fun. We've been doing this show for a couple months now, and we've been talking. We want to have guests on.
Yeah. And I've known Audrey for a number of years. You're a master gardener. We're here in NDSU Cass County Extension with a master gardener group. So, yeah, welcome, Audrey.
Thank you very much.
Audrey Gilbraith, the horticulturist at Baker Garden and Gift in Fargo. Audrey, how long have you been with Baker?
Yeah, actually, it is going to be my 4-year anniversary on May 15th. I started 5 days after I graduated college, and that's why I remember that date.
So how do you celebrate an anniversary at a garden center? Do you get a plant, or do you get how do you celebrate it there?
Yeah, that kind of celebration of buying plants happens every day, if I am honest with you, especially at this time of year. I think I just wear, a clean shirt, something that doesn't have dirt on it, and usually I like to take a picture in front of a nice display, whatever is in flower the best at that moment in time, and usually I just tell everybody that it's my anniversary and have a party.
Well, I would think that there and all the garden centers around town are really picking up a lot of activity, especially over the last week.
Absolutely, yes. As Dawn mentioned, with the warmer weather, it's an earlier spring than we expected. It's been just perfect temperatures. Annuals are okay to be outside right now, so everybody is ready. It's a steady stream of folks, and everybody's getting ready for the season.
Yeah, and it seemed like it was going to be a late spring, but when it happened, it has happened. So it has really turned into not a late spring. It kind of looked like it was going to be, but it's not.
I've seen some reports.
It's turned.
Yeah, that May could even actually be warmer than normal.
Yeah, exactly, because I'm not seeing evenings in the 30s, or at least as we're recording here,
Yep.
I'm not seeing evenings in the 30s. So it's pleasant.
Yeah, the snow took a while to leave, but when we got there, now it's just wonderful and beautiful.
But boy, are we all hungry to be in garden centers.
Yeah.
And of course, that's what's fun today, talking about some of the new things in garden centers.
Well, that's exactly it. I think that while we as consumers, myself, we're excited to go in now and see everything that's new. And it's got to be kind of exciting for people who work at garden centers to see, what are the new things in garden centers? What are the new things that you're seeing in the stores?
Yeah, so we have a good amount of new annual flowers, just some different colors of things, a lot of the same species, just in new hybrids of either smaller or larger, or primarily just different colors is for the most part what we're seeing. But it's really fun every year. There's always new colors of petunias and just some old classics that have a new spin on them.
Well, let's talk about some of the ones. You brought a list of some fun things that are there you're seeing in the store now. Let's start with the annuals. What are we seeing there?
Yes, so the one I want to talk about first is the Thunbergia. Thunbergia, however you want to say it, black-eyed Susan vine is the common name of it. That's the one that we typically know as that beautiful yellow vining. It'll really take up an arbor or a trellis, as much space as you give it, several feet. Yellow is the classic. We have two colors of oranges, a nice bright orange, and then one called Arizona Glow. That's a little darker, but this year we have the Tower Power White, and that is just spectacular to see. I've never seen a white Thunbergia in person before, and they have those dark centers. That's typical, and they look like little pandas to me. That's how I sell them to people.
Well, and Mary and I grow Thunbergia every year. I love it. because you can grow it in a pot, trained up on a trellis. It gives you some height, and it loves sun and heat. So if you're looking for something, it does need to be watered when it's dry, otherwise it will wilt, but loves sun and heat.
Absolutely. I grow mine on my balcony. They're spectacular for railings because they'll just take up all of that space, and then you have a fence of Thunbergia, and who doesn't want that?
Yeah, so if you've never tried it, experience it. It's good.
So I've done clematis, or as we talked about.
Of course, that's a perennial vine.
Perennial,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
But I wanted to see, as far as comparisons, as far as climbers, are they about the same as far as do they get about the same height and the same kind of spread, or do they tend to not grow as high? Do you know?
Right. So the clematis grows, and with all vines, they grow very quickly. They're going to take up as much space as possible. So with the clematis, that is one that actually dies back every year. It's not as woody as a lot of the other vines are. So typically that's more of a late season. You kind of see them start to flower and do their stuff. We actually just staked them up on trellises yesterday because they're just growing several inches per day. But the Thunbergia, that's going to be right away. You plant it in a pot, and that is just going to take over more of a May, June, July, and really give you that color that you want right away.
And especially that early, if you really want that early kind of punch, that's the way to go. Well, and I like this one too because you said panda. I looked at it and I saw the black and white, and I thought tuxedos. To me, it just seemed very formal. It seemed very, proper, and I liked it. I thought that was a nice one.
Yeah, I love that kind of thought behind it. Very black tie, very formal.
Yeah, very button up.
Yes.
So another one, there's a new salvia. Salvias are always really good.
Oh, yes. So salvias are spectacular, especially if you want some height in a container. The ones that we're used to seeing are the blues and the purples. Blues and purples are the favorite colors of bees, but this year we actually have two new varieties. So we have an orange and we have a pink. Those are from the Skyscraper series, and those are going to be, I believe, about 2 feet each, and they will really just come up and provide some excellent color. We haven't seen them in those colors before, so it's really nice to get some new warmth that's taller.
And of course, these are the annual type salvia as opposed to there's a perennial type salvia also. But these annual type salvia are wonderful for containers, like you said, or flower beds. And I'm frequently asked, what can I plant where it's hot and gets lots of sunny? And of course, salvia is another choice that would do well in the sun.
Yeah. I think if I can go to the next one as well,
sure.
I would say that lantana is a spectacular choice to pair with that as well, because that's one that I believe is from Australia. When I went to college, I had a foreign exchange student who came in the greenhouse and said, "Why are you growing this weed in here?" But if you think of the Australian landscape, very hot, very dry. Lantana is right along those lines. We have the Bandolero pink this year. Lantana is the one where it has multi-colors in a lot of them. It'll go from yellow to a little bit of orange to some pink in there as well, and you're basically getting dozens of flowers just for one.
And so you mentioned pairing that lantana with the salvia, which in a container, that'd make a good accompaniment because the salvia would give you some height, and then lantana is a little more spreading, low spreading, and so the two, would pair well.
Yeah. When I discuss container designing with anybody who comes in, we always talk about thriller, filler, and spiller. I don't know if you've discussed that here before, but that is the formula that we follow. We want something tall. Thriller, we want something to spill over, get long out the side, and then just something to fill up, nice and bushy. So those are 2/3 of the equation right there.
And what else do we have? We got a new verbena.
Yes. We have quite a few verbenas, but typically the ones that I see are going to be just solid colors. So we have ones that are magenta and the black velvet and very deep dark colors. But this purple bicolor, verbena purple bicolor, is a new one this year, and that actually, as the name implies, has two colors in it. So it has this beautiful little white center to it and then fades out to a purple, kind of more of a lavender, so it's a lighter verbena, and then it's got that two color in it, which is just very, very exciting. I've never seen something like that before.
And the verbena makes another good kind of a filler, a little lower growing, so it kind of fills in a container, maybe drapes over the edge a little bit too, so accompanying something higher looks great.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
a
it'll
nice
creep
type.
right
I
out
looked
the
up
side.
photos of each of these. That's beautiful.
Yeah. They only ever make them more beautiful. I've never seen an ugly flower released in the year 2020s. So.
Yeah, they don't introduce the other ones, the also-rans, they keep those. The cutting room floors, they stay there.
Right. Those are in progress trial plants.
Well, and talking about another filler, petunias will really do that. They'll really fill in nicely, won't they?
Yes, absolutely. Petunias are probably the high maintenance of the annual varieties, heavy feeder, they require deadheading, but the one that we have new this year is the headliner Blackberry Vein, which is just absolutely worthwhile. I'm a sucker for a darker petunia. The Black Magic is my personal favorite flower out of any of them. It's this very black, dark velvet, and the Blackberry Vein has that at its center, that same kind of velvety, almost absorbs the light, and just gorgeous color. And then Blackberry Vein, it kind of lightning strikes out from the center of that really deep purple color to have kind of a lighter around it as well. So another beautiful bicolor variety, yes.
And of course, in the history of petunias for decades were used as a flower bed plant. You'd buy your 4-pack or 6-pack of petunias, plant them out, and you could use those in containers. But one thing that's really exciting for me in these last decade or two are all these container-friendly petunias. And they can be planted in a flower bed too. But all of these, the person kind of gets in a larger container, larger pot, larger cell size that just works so beautifully in containers.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they will just take any space that's given to them. I, of course, love a petunia wherever it's planted in the bed. They crawl and take up space. But in a hanging basket, there's really nothing that can beat it, honestly. Calibrachoa is kind of the Million Bell is kind of a smaller petunia, but there's just really nothing that's that same big trumpet shape that takes up
one
space
thing
like
that
that.
I like on these petunias such as this, and I think the Blackberry Vein headliner would be a good one too, is just planting entirely that in a container and just let it mass over, or a hang basket. So these don't always have to be planted in combination with other things. They are beautiful, just one big massive pot of it.
Yeah, and I feel like as gardeners, and I'm very much guilty of this, we want to pack 7 different varieties in a 12-inch planter, which isn't the best idea for the plants, but just having them in that individual container is really beautiful because then you can let them shine.
Sometimes they'll compete a little bit with each other, and sometimes just letting that individual species shine can be awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we've seen some of those big hanging baskets outside of Baker Garden and Gift full of stacked with petunia, and they're so dramatic. This one is really dramatic. I mean, like just the coloration of it and the fact that, like you said, it's in the name, the velvet, but it's or the vein rather, but that it is this kind of richness and this it's really striking.
I've been gardening for a fair number of years, but I am more excited about gardening now than I think I ever have been because there are so many beautiful new things being introduced.
It's really great.
Good times.
Well, we're going to take a little quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about perennials with our guest, Audrey Gilbraith, the horticulturist from Baker Garden and Gift.
Get 3 months of local news for just 99 cents a month. You'll get unlimited access to the news you need to stay engaged and connected to your community. Visit inforum.com/subscribe now to get 3 months of local news for only 99 cents a month.
Okay, we're back with our special guest, Audrey Gilbraith, from horticulturist from Baker Garden and Gift. And we're going to now talk about some perennials. We just talked about the annuals, but let's hear, what are some of the perennials that are new this year?
Yes, so we have a very interesting new coneflower. Coneflowers, of course, are a native in our area. They are from the prairie, so they're very good in those hot, dry areas. Also a favorite of our pollinators. But the one in particular that really caught my eye is the apricot fresco. So there are the typical colors of coneflowers, which are your purple, your pink, your white. I've seen yellow, orange, red, but I have never ever seen the kind of more pastel light orange, that mango, that apricot kind of a color, and that is just stunningly gorgeous. So the apricot fresco, brand new color of coneflower, really a mix on the old classic, and I'm just in love with it.
Don, do you do much with cornflowers?
We do, yeah. There have been so many nice colors, nice color shades. There's been a lot of breeding work done with cornflowers, and so they're exciting. And one thing that a person might mention is, too, in perennials, some have very long lives. Peonies can live for 100 years. Other perennials, we enjoy them. They maybe don't have as long a lifespan. Coneflower maybe doesn't have as long lifespan as a peony, but we can still enjoy them for 5 years, 7 years, and then by then maybe they've got new varieties that we should try too. So some of these aren't maybe as long lived, but they're certainly worth planting.
I would absolutely agree. I had planted some previously in our beds maybe 2 years ago, and this year I have some new seedlings. They self-seed themselves,
exactly.
and I actually had a few more plants to deal with.
So don't anyone get discouraged if they don't last, forever and ever, because not all perennials do. But yeah, coneflowers are awesome. Yeah, and that's interesting. I got the seedlings, because sometimes they'll seed themselves and then come back and keep doing that as well.
I planted 2, but now there's 5 in that bed. So
yeah, awesome.
That pays off pretty well, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
What about hostas? You got a hosta on here.
Yes, the Amazon. So with hostas, there are just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of varieties, So there's a hosta out there for everyone, even people who say they don't like hostas very much.
I have a hard time picking. There's so many good ones. I have a hard time picking when I come to the garden centers.
Yeah.
I'd like one of each.
I know, right? And actually, my boyfriend's father up in Crookston has about 200 varieties in his backyard.
Wow.
And he's, just a botanical garden size, and he still buys more and comes for new ones. So that's something that, there's really something for everyone. I am just always excited to see
what is
new
this
leaf
one?
varieties.
I'm curious now. You've got my curiosity. What is is it pronounced Amazon?
Amazon, I believe.
What is that one like?
Yeah, I believe that's just another kind of variegated variety. I would have to look up a photo.
Yeah, and it's fun also on hosta because some are well adapted to sun. You can plant in full sun. Others require shade. And so it'll be curious. The name Amazon, I'm kind of curious. It'll be fun to look up to see. Is that one that takes a little more sun, a little more heat?
Hosta names are really fun, walking around the garden center and looking at them, because I think that there's one that's a Star Trek reference. I know for sure. I can't remember if it's
Captain
called Enterprise.
Kirk.
Oh, is it Captain Kirk?
Yes, it
it's
is.
It's straight out Captain Kirk.
My father pointed that out to me the very first time he ever visited the garden center. Yes.
There's that, and then there's one that's either called Minneapolis or St. Paul or Twin Cities or something like that, and that's a pretty big one. And obviously you get into the Woo hostas, which are just the ginormous ones. Those are just really fantastic.
Yeah, the Empress Woo is one of my favorites. If you have a foot, if you have 6 feet, there's just hostas everywhere, and all the colors as well. And then the blooms, love them.
That has to be somebody's job, naming plants.
Yeah.
The creative people name these plants. There's got to be jobs out there.
My girlfriend likes to play a game where she will make me guess the color of the nail polish. And those are so far. I'm never on the same page. But naming plants, that would be a fun one for me. That would be something that maybe I could get a little more.
I might have to steal that idea and play it with some of our employees in the garden center because that sounds fun.
It's a good game. Let's talk. There's a lot of vegetables here, so we can just kind of run through these quick. But what are some of the new vegetables that are in this year?
Yeah, so cucumbers always popular. We have a lunchbox variety this year, so one of the smaller types called Green Light. Very excited about that because typically cucumbers get quite large, so one of the smaller ones is very nice to have. I'm going to try some pickling.
Somebody at lunch the other day, out of their lunch, popped out a little cucumber. And it's so awesome. Lunchbox cucumbers.
Yeah.
Look good.
A little muncher. Yeah.
Exactly that. Yeah, just a bite size because I always have to eat them in halves myself. So lunchbox variety. Try it out. Newer, small one. The Pepper Petite Blend. This is one that I'm really excited about. More of a sweet pepper.
Oh,
and
nice.
that is almost, kind of like a lunchbox as well. A smaller type of pepper, multicolor, red, orange, yellow, and just something kind of more for snacking, like a cherry tomato, but in a pepper form.
So it doesn't necessarily have that heat. Some people will be looking for the super hot peppers. This is really, like you said, much more of a sweet one.
Yeah, much more of a snacking type of pepper. There are plenty of hot ones, habanero, jalapeno, sriracha, gypsy, banana. Yep, there are plenty of them out there. And if you're brave, you can snack on those too.
Well, the number of varieties out there, tomatoes, obviously another thing. You've got a new tomato in this year.
Yes, there is a glacier tomato out here. Very nice for patios as well. If you can choose between all the tomatoes, might as well try a new one rather than just your heirlooms.
This one is listed 55 days, which makes it nice and early.
And also, I saw that it really produces really quite abundantly throughout the year.
Yeah, so for people, especially gardening on patios, this would be, I think, a good one, good choice.
How about some ones that we tend to think of as more fall?
Yes, so we have some pumpkin and some squash this year. There was a couple of very cool pumpkins that I saw available that we are producing this year. Not just your Big Macs, which is really the classic, but we have one that's called Cinderella. That is more of a flat variety of pumpkin and really just got an interesting shape to it. I love to have pumpkins in the fall to make what we call pumpculents. We'll put little succulents on top of pumpkins, so that's a perfect one for that kind of project. We do pumpkin painting at Fall Festival every year, and always good to have some nice lateral surface areas when it comes to pumpkins.
And how about squash?
Yes, so I mean, buttercup has to be the most popular squash, at least from my experience, what I see. If not, people like their summer squash and their zucchini. But the buttercup are the ones that people really always go for. And the Space Station buttercup squash is a new one that we have this year, very similar to a table or an acorn squash, but from outer space.
Yeah, and again, just kind of proving that people are having fun with naming these plants, aren't they?
Absolutely.
So I'm curious if Space Station indicates that it requires a little less space. I'm curious.
Oh, that would be a real play on the
I'd
play
be
on
curious
the
if that's one of those that might require less space than the large fining types. And of course, what's fun with some of these varieties, we don't always know everything about them until we experience them, but it's fun to try them.
Yeah, I love that thought behind it.
All right, we're going to take another quick break, and then we'll be back with our guest, Audrey Gilbraith from Baker Garden and Gift.
If you're loving this podcast, be sure to check out our full lineup. From news and local politics to sports and true crime, find your next great listen right now at inforum.com/podcasts. That's inforum.com/podcasts.
All right, we're back with Audrey Gilbraith, the horticulturist from Baker Garden and Gift. We're going to talk first of all, we're going to talk about some fruits. We've talked about vegetables, we've talked about annuals, perennials. Let's talk about some fruits. What's new there?
Yes, so the Cirrus raspberry is relatively recent. I believe this one is kind of within the past few years. This is a variety hybrid off of the Boyne raspberry, which is one of the best producers for our area. I believe that this one comes from Canada and is just a fabulous new raspberry. It's always hard to choose raspberries because there are so many varieties. There's yellow ones, and then you have the fall bearing and the June bearing, and it's always very difficult. But Cirrus, Boyne, Heritage, Lantham Red, always just classic go-to varieties.
And Boyne has been around a long time, I believe, developed in Canada. But what's fun now, Cirrus is an improvement on that, and the Canadians are really excited. And they were excited about Boyne. So if they're excited about Cirrus, I'm anxious to try it.
You think
is it Cirrus or Saurus? Souris.
I'm from around the Minot area, and we say Cirrus.
You've got
like
the
the
river.
Cirrus River.
You've got
yeah.
the river, sure, yeah.
How about there's a new mulberry?
The mulberry. So this could really be a topic all on its own. I believe it's Jim Walla is the one who is behind that project for the most part. So the mulberry is one that we are able to offer for the very first time this year. Just incredibly exciting. Fruit trees are fairly difficult, I would say, other than apple. I would say apple and then plum is doable. But when it comes to kind of cherry and pear and apricot, it gets difficult.
The name of this mulberry is the Trader mulberry, isn't it? Yeah, Trader mulberry. You mentioned Jim Walla, retired plant pathologist. There was this mulberry that was growing on a farmstead near Valley City that was planted 100 years ago, brought from Germany. And it was an awesome mulberry. And while Jim Walla, when he retired, knows a lot about plants, propagating plants, he started propagating this mulberry, Trader mulberry. I was fortunate. He gave me one about 8 years ago. It's awesome. It will get 15 feet high and wide and produces wonderful fruit. It's just absolutely awesome. So I'm happy to hear you guys getting that into the trade. So the Trader mulberry, awesome.
So what is a mulberry fruit? I'm unfamiliar.
It's shaped, I suppose, kind of like, well, it has its own shape, but I suppose a little bit raspberry-like. Purple raspberry, black raspberry.
So it's got that texture kind of?
Yeah, kind of like that. It's in flavor, it's probably a cross between a raspberry, a blueberry, kind of like that.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it is. It's awesome. And fully winter hardy. And I planted it in space where I should have had a little more space.
You say it gets about 15 feet?
Yeah, it can get 15 feet tall. I'm pruning it to try to keep it at about 10 feet. So that's an exciting development. And yeah, great that we can buy it at the garden center.
Right. I'm really happy to offer it to everyone because that's something that, hasn't been available before. And now all of a sudden we can start having mulberry pies. And we're going to be seeing that within the next decade,
So what do you do with the fruits, Don?
Well, they are so good that I've just eaten them off ours just started bearing because we had to move it, et cetera. Well, anyway, ours started bearing heavily the last 2 years.
Okay.
And I eat them fresh, and we pick them, and whatever I don't eat as I'm picking, then there's enough left. We eat them fresh. You could use them in pies, all kinds of things.
So this isn't a tree?
Fresh eating, it's wonderful. It's a large shrubby tree.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I should have described that. A large shrubby tree.
It's not a tree that needs another tree to...
No.
It doesn't need a pair.
Self-pollinating. And so it's not like a single trunk tree like an apple tree. Yeah. It becomes a big bush. So really, for screening effect, it could do that too. Multi-purpose.
Yeah.
The birds like it too.
Oh, I believe that.
Bird netting is advised.
Okay. And so let's talk about some tropical plants.
Yes. So I attended the Tropical Plant International Expo in, January 2022, and the sponsor of that event was the Sun Parasol Yellow Mandevilla. And they were actually all sold out last year, so we could not even get them. But this year, we have some Sun Parasol Mandevillas. Mandevilla, another fabulous viner. Tropical, of course, not hardy here. But if you are looking for something to cover up some lattice fencing,
when you can't make it to City Hall or
a trellis
school
of
board
any
meetings,
sort,
local journalists
I couldn't
from
recommend this one more
Inform.com will be
highly.
there
The
to
Sun
report the facts
Parasol
and
is
get
this
your questions answered.
bright yellow.
Local news works for
as the
you.
name implies,
Stay up
Sun
to date
Parasol
at
Yellow
Inform.com.
Mandevilla, which is not a color that is typical for Mandevillas. The ones that we typically see are going to be white, pink, and red, of course, but the Sun Parasol is yellow. And then there's also an apricot mango variety, which again is one of my favorite colors in plants.
And there are some of these plants like Mandevilla that once you have one, you've got to have it all the time.
Absolutely.
They are so nice. It's like, I can't have a summer without a Mandevilla.
You have to bring it back.
Yeah, well, actually, we do bring those indoors.
Oh, so they will? Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
you can winter them indoors in a bright, sunny window.
Mm-hmm.
So how big are they when you buy them? Like, how big do you guys have them at Baker?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have usually about 3 sizes of them. Typical 4-inch container is going to be the smallest size, probably about a 6-inch plant. And then they go all the way up from 4 inches, 6 inches, 8 inches. And then we have some 12-inch plants that will get in, and they're literally taller than me. So they're about 5.5 feet. I'm 5'4.5". So they beat me out just a little bit. And we had 2 of them last year that we just kind of put in a display. Nobody happened to buy them, and they literally just started taking over where they were. They were climbing up into the rafters of the greenhouse. It was really, really fun to watch.
Make a beautiful vining or trellised container plant.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So they're fast growers.
They are exceptionally fast growers, yes.
All right. And let's talk about something. This is kind of a pet project for you. This is something that you really believe in. Let's talk about pollinator gardens, because that's kind of a hot topic now, right?
It absolutely is. 2023 is just a year that pollinator gardens, I would say, are on trend. So I will tell you guys about my project that I've been working on. This last summer, I was given the responsibility of tending to the grounds at Baker, and for the most part, last fall, I was just focusing on getting out some perennial weeds, a lot of thistles. But my big project that I've been planning all winter, did a landscape design for it, is a perennial garden. There is a list of certified pollinator plants through NDSU Extension that I was working off of. And with that, you want to have, it's a minimum of 7 plants. You want to have 2 blooming at the beginning of the season, March, April, 2 blooming May, June, and then 2 blooming in July, August, and then at least 1 for the fall season, September, October as well. So as long as you have ones within all of those bloom periods, that's all you need for a pollinator garden. The one that I have created at Baker is this beautiful hardscaped area that we just kind of put annuals in every year, and then it was kind of so-so, wasn't paid attention to. But by putting not only perennials there, but ones that are so, I feel like pollinator plants are interactive, because even just this morning, I literally planted it 2 days ago. There was a monarch butterfly that came by. And by having that in a, what I consider a community space, having that for people to look at and to share and to be inspiring, not only do people start thinking about the world and nature in our cityscape, but also helps with fear of insects that I see a lot, especially with children. And then just to have kids really get engaged with nature and really see something just cool.
And the thing that I like about pollinator gardens, they're beautiful in their own right, because you've got something blooming early, mid, later in the summer. And so they're beautiful. But in addition to attracting butterflies, the other thing that is so important, pollinator garden, those little pollinating bees, that's what gives us the apple crops and the cucumber crops and pumpkins, squash. So we need those little buddies. And if we can give them nectar and pollen sources throughout the growing season, we're doing them a good favor, and they're doing us a whole lot of good favor.
Absolutely. Yeah. Having it next to a vegetable garden, your fruit trees, anything that needs to be pollinated, your food crops is an invaluable resource. And especially with those smaller bees, I think we think of bees and we think of the big fuzzy bumbles, and we think of honeybees that we raise, but the native solitary bee species that we have here in the Midwest are just as important as well, So even the tiniest pollinator
the
does so much.
bumblebees get all the glory.
They do.
But when you look at your cucumbers and squash plants, the ones that are actually flying in there are those little bees that are doing the work. And so it is really awesome to see.
Yeah, and just giving them a home and having a home base for them to be able to have a buffet every day.
And those little pollinating bees can fly quite a distance too. So even if you don't have a garden or orchard right by that, you're helping the whole community, the whole region, by giving these little guys food to eat and a space to be.
I will say that I live rather close to Baker. I live just a few blocks away, and so having the pollinator garden there definitely helps my my tomatoes on my patio. I just have a small balcony, and having them around there helps with not only my vegetables but the community garden around. And yeah, it really does make an impact in a wider space.
I think we're going to have to do a whole show on pollinator gardens.
Oh, definitely.
I think that'll be a fun one.
That is a great topic.
Audrey, how about, this is going to kind of throw this out there, are there any new products that you're seeing in the store, whether they be new means of watering or something that you're going to use in the garden? Are you seeing anything out there that's new and that you've seen people get excited about or that people should know about?
Yeah, so we are a gift store as well, so we sell a lot of those kind of garden center products. So we have quite a few things. The first thing that I just remembered is actually there is a can of hummingbird nectar. So you would typically do 4 parts water to 1 part sugar, stir it all together, you get your hummingbirds. But we actually sell it in a can, like it looks like a soda pop, and we literally
like a
have
top can.
Exactly that. And I just had never thought of that. I think that's brilliant. And we have a sign on it actually that says, "This is for our hummingbird friends. Please do not ingest."
Well, my wife had mixed up a couple of years ago, had mixed up hummingbird food and had it in the refrigerator, and it was red. I drank it for Kool-Aid. It was actually quite good, and I live to talk about it.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that you live to tell the tale. I just love that pre-made stuff, so that just came to my mind. The
Good
one
idea.
that I feel like is most useful to us specifically is there are gardening sleeves. So they're kind of almost like spandex. They just kind of slide right on. They're gloves, basically, that go from your hands all the way up to beyond your elbows or even up to your shoulders. And they will protect you not only from the sun, but also from anything that you may be rubbing up against. So I really could have used a pair of them when I was fighting thistles last fall. I'll tell you that. Whenever we're moving large evergreens around, those will kind of scratch up our arms and give us a little bit of irritation there, and then rose bushes as well. Anything that is going to pick at you, those gardening sleeves really, really come in handy.
I need those because when I'm gardening, usually it's warm out, pleasant, and so you got short sleeved shirt, and then my arms get bruised. And I need those.
Yeah, they're fabulous for working because I'm not going to wear long sleeves either. Yeah.
Well, Audrey, thanks a lot for coming in. This has been great. It's been really fun to hear about the new plants and the new products, too, that are at Baker Garden and Gift. So people can come out and they can ask for you. If they have questions, they can come and see you. And yeah, I just really encourage that because you're probably going to get a lot of people coming out now just because the weather's been so great.
Oh, it's just been perfect. And Mother's Day is this weekend. May is the month to plant, and we just welcome absolutely everyone. We've been doing a lot of fun stuff. Come check out all the flowers and the grounds and the pollinator garden I just planted. And I would just love to chat with anybody who would like to come by. But more than anything, just enjoy the warm weather and the whole season.
All right, and that's going to do it for another episode of Gardening Together. Don, if people have any questions, what's the best way to reach you?
Feel free to email me, send photos if you'd like to of different issues, and my email address is donald.kinzler, let me spell that, Kinzler, donald.kinzler @ndsu.edu.
All right, well, I'm John Lamb.
Don Kinzler.
And we'll talk to you next week.
Growing Together, a gardening podcast, is sponsored by Bloomfield Garden Center, a family-owned retail greenhouse providing locally grown plants since 1974. You can find them 1 mile north of Sabin, Minnesota, or 6 miles south of I-94 at exit 6. Just a quick drive from Fargo-Moorhead.